So you often hear me talk about expanding your emotional capacity for more, expanding your emotional capacity to hold more. So what does that look like tangibly? So I wanted to actually give you the behind the scenes look into my life. I'm being super vulnerable here. So if you're not in the space where hand over heart, where you're feeling like I cannot I'm at my max emotionally right now, or maybe you're at a place where, you know what, I need to hear this because I'm feeling so stretched emotionally. I'm in a season where things feel so heavy, where things feel so hard right now. And this may be exactly the message that you need. Okay. So I'm going to trust you to trust your body. So if you're not in a space where you feel like I cannot receive this message right now because it's too much, I'm dealing with a lot, amazing. Save this for later. But if you're in a season where you're feeling stretched right now, this may be exactly what it is that you need to hear. I want to ground this for you by giving you an example of what it is that I've been navigating through, what it is that I've been basically going through this summer. So a few weeks ago, it was on a Tuesday. We had a situation come up with our son. Most of you here who have been following me for a while, you know I have a child with special needs. He's autistic, non-speaker, also has epilepsy, amongst other conditions. And we had an incident with him that did involve the police was involved. We had the ambulance came, fire trucks, all of that, ended up in an emergency room. And I wanted to give you a sense of what I was going through because you are going to take this and apply it into your situation, your circumstances. It could be your personal, but also everything that we experience. I truly believe that part of entrepreneurship, especially as mothers, especially as women, is all interconnected. When one area of our life is deeply impacted and how we respond to one thing in one situation, one area of our life, it oftentimes will see that we respond in other areas as well. And so in that moment, of course, my heart is broken for our son. I'm devastated. And I felt myself crumbling. Right. And mind you, I'm a certified emotional freedom technique practitioner. I do mindset work, I teach it, I embody it, and I have to tune in within me, right? And allow myself, then, of course, I can feel those emotions. And at the same time, recognizing that as a mom, as a mother, I also have to stay strong for him. Okay. So that doesn't mean that we're spiritual bypassing, where we're ignoring our emotions, we're pretending it's not there. Okay. So in business, if your business feels like it's crumbling and you're going through all of these things, I don't want you to ignore your emotions. I don't want you to pretend it's not there. It's important that we process it, that we work through the emotions. Okay. I'm going to talk about that in a moment. But first, I want to come back to this. So I had to decide in that moment that I had to be the strong one for him. I had to be the strong one for my children. That doesn't mean I'm going to ignore my emotions, but that does mean that in that moment, I have to make sure I'm staying in my leadership as a mom. And oftentimes in business, when things are crumbling around you, you're going to have to stand in your leadership as the CEO when everything feels like it's falling apart. Okay. I had to, in that moment, expand my capacity then to be able to effectively communicate what took place. Okay. I had to talk to police officer, the fire department, ambulance, and then of course the ER nurses and the doctor and the social worker. And then out of that, we were placed in, we had to work with a crisis team, creating a safety plan, all those things. But I had to remain in my leadership because as the mom, I'm the heart of the home. I have to be able to lead my family. I have to create an environment of safety for my girls and my son, even from himself. I have to stay in that leadership, even when it's hard, even when I felt like I was going to break down. And I truly do believe that God will enter in and strengthen you when you ask for it. Because it's not by my strength. Because if I felt like I had to do it alone, I had to rely on myself, I would probably crumble. So my prayer is always, God, help strengthen me. Not by my strength, but by yours. Help increase my capacity to lead my family. Help increase my emotional capacity so I can hold myself together, so I can be fully there for them. Because it's really hard to fully be there for them, to make sure my girls are okay if I'm crumbling. Make sure our son's okay if I'm the one crumbling. I can't create a safety plan when I'm so wrapped up in my thoughts, my perception of the situation, and I start future casting. And I'm going to tell you right here that as a special needs mom, we are so susceptible to this. As mothers, we're so susceptible to this. Future casting, what if? And we go into worst case scenarios. And what I had to learn to do, and what I invite you into, is mindfulness practices that help ground you, to help you help you to be in the present. You're not creating stories around it, because that's one of the first things that happens. Because if I went right into the story, I couldn't create the safety plan. If I went right into the story, I couldn't lead the team well. If I went right into the story, I couldn't tap into different resources that have now opened up for me. Okay. And it makes me, and I'm not going to go on a whole a tangent on this, but it makes me so sad that a lot of resources are not available to family like ours until they're considered a crisis. And the only way for them to be considered a crisis is when your child ends up in the ER. Right? So I'm not going to go into tangent on that. But what I will say about it is, if I did not have the emotional bandwidth or the emotional capacity to hold myself together, I would not be able to lead that team well. I would not be able to have the conversations that was necessary in order to tune into those resources. And so if you're struggling with your emotional bandwidth, my first step for you is, I want you to enter into prayer. And whether you're a Christian or not, for me, it's like, I can't rely on myself and my limitation than to say, how can I make this work? It's like, God, help reveal to me what the next steps are. Walk alongside me, so that way I can provide what is necessary for our son. So I can take the steps that are necessary to support my family in this season. And for you, as an entrepreneur, is when everything around you feels like it's crumbling. And then the prayer for you could look like, God, what is my next step? I don't need to know all of it, but what's that very first step you want me to take? How can I remove my feelings around the situation, the perception from my lens around the situation, so that way I'm actually able to lead my team? And for you, it could be that your team is just yourself, but you have to lead yourself before you can lead your clients. Okay. So there's that emotional capacity that's so important, because in all that mix, as an entrepreneur, as a business leader, I had to make some decisions. So I started, for those of you who are who are watching this video, chances are you probably are on my email list. You may have noticed that, wait, something happened, but I was still receiving emails from you. Yes, that's intentional, because I try as best as I can to, record videos ahead of time for you. And I have them schedule out. That was a decision I made as a mom. And for those of you who are mothers as well, a lot of you are, is how can I then set up my business so that way things are still moving Emails are still being sent. I still have content going out. My clients are still being supported because it wasn't like, oh, that happened. And this was 3 weeks ago. So what I don't ever do as much as I can, except for those of you who are already in my membership, because it gives you an opportunity, or in my programs, it gives you an opportunity to see how I navigate things in real time, is I don't believe in emotionally dumping. Okay. So that's the difference between being vulnerable. It is okay for you to go on social media and be vulnerable with your clients, be vulnerable with those who are following you, be vulnerable with those in your circle. But the discernment comes when, am I ready to share that part? And the fact that I'm sitting here now 3 weeks later and I'm able to share with you, I'm not putting like extra emotions on it, not adding like future casting, like all these things that could possibly happen. It's because I already have processed and worked through it first. I already brought it to Jesus. I have already done the emotional work that I needed to get to a space where I can speak about it and not add elements to it that will then cause me to crumble. And so for you, when you apply this into content creation, I'm going to bet that a lot of you are navigating different things because it's part of life. And life has so many lessons for us. We all navigate different things. And we have to discern when we are ready to share elements of it. There's going to be parts of you that's ready to share right off the bat. Beautiful. And I'm also going to give you permission, even though you don't need it, that it is okay to not share about certain elements of your life when you're not ready yet. And there's going to be elements of your life where you never have to share because you don't owe anything to anyone. You don't owe anything to me. You don't owe anything to your followers, to your potential clients, to your current clients. Absolutely not. There's going to be certain things that you don't want to share and you do not have to. That's very different from being vulnerable because wisdom tells you that you share because you trust. You have gone, you have your inner circle. There's certain things that you're going to trust with your inner circle that no one else will ever know. There's certain things that you're going to trust with God that you may not share with anyone else, not even your partner. There are certain things that you feel ready that you're going to share with family, friends. And there's certain things that people in your family and friend circle would never understand simply because it may have to do with a business, especially if you're like a business to business and you're navigating certain things in your business and they're not business owners. They're not entrepreneurs. They don't understand. So you may just share it with your followers. You may just share it inside your membership and your group coaching program. Beautiful. That's wisdom. Okay. So I know there's so many lessons in this. And so when we talk about expanding your emotional capacity, so I'm going to go back to that. I'm not going on a full tangent about wisdom and discernment, is when I am going through something. Okay. The discernment, the wisdom is what's the next step? What is the direction I have to take as the CEO, as the business owner? And going back to if you were on my email list, it felt like nothing skipped a beat. It's like, oh, okay, she's doing this. And then there's another video that came out. I'm still getting emails. And for, on Instagram or even on social media, other like shorter form content, you may have noticed that I haven't been that active on there. And that was intentional. It was not me suddenly, oh, this life happened and I'm not going to show up on Instagram. It was, I know summers. I'm a mother. I'm very aware. I've seen patterns of what summer looks like for us. And I'm giving myself grace in that I don't have to be consistent on social media because my business still runs, because I still have clients, because money still comes in, because I have set my business up that way. I was very intentional in how that was set up, that my business had to support my life, especially as a special needs mom. For those of you who've been around for a while, you remember back in December when our son had a seizure. And my business still has to move because it provides for my family. And so when we talk about stretching our emotional capacity, it's not even just our emotional capacity for our business, because your business and your life are often intertwined as an entrepreneur, especially as a mother. And so I had to make that decision. It's like, okay, emails are still being sent out. I decided in that moment I was going to push back a couple of live launches. So I still have launches happening, like where there's still sales. So I wouldn't say launches necessarily, but you're still getting sales emails, you're still getting content, things of that nature. But the live launches I was planning on doing, I was like, I'm going to be intentional here, and I'm going to push them back because I have set myself up financially so that way I trust that things come in waves, not so much because of business itself, but because of my life and the life I lead. I know that with our son, it goes in waves. He's going to have periods of regression. And if I am codependent on him and I have not built my business well, it would be something happens with him, then everything gets dialed back. And now I'm having to start from zero each time. And for me, I'm unavailable for that. I was available for that in the season, in the beginning, when I was still learning. And so some of you may still be in that where life happens, you take a step back, you don't show up, income drops. And that's okay, because you're still learning. You're still learning how to basically marry your business with your life. And then expanding your emotional capacity for more. Because as life happens, it stretches you emotionally. That means what? Your business is also going to stretch you as well. Because while I was navigating through that, I was still supporting clients. My client work doesn't stop simply because that's something like that happened. Now, it was a real emergency where, for example, I had one of my clients whose son was hospitalized. Then best believe I would make that CEO decision where, okay, there are certain things that has to stop. My one-on-ones can only be completed by me. That's what my clients sign up for. That's what they have entrusted me with. So in that scenario, what I would have done in that scenario, what I would have been to extend those contracts. If that had happened to me, what I would have done in my memberships was I would have reached out to my other certified EFT practitioners, my friends in the industry, and they would have filled those gaps for me because I have those support system in place. I have built my life, my support network in a way that then allows me to expand my emotional capacity for more. So that's my invitation to you as well, is when you take a look at your life and at your business, notice patterns. There's always going to be patterns that you notice. It's like, okay, what was happening when this dialed down? Was it intentional? It is okay for you to be intentional in those periods where you plan ahead for cash flow dipping, but it doesn't affect your lifestyle because you have saved for it. Those are intentional saving strategy, right? That's wisdom. That's when you foresee a pattern and you decide, like, for example, I have friends in the industry who decided, I'm going to take summers off completely. Beautiful. So what did you do? They set up systems in place so that way their business is still continuing to run. Something that I have done in order for my business to continue to run, in order for sales to still come in, that does not require me, is I started a process of daily sales for myself. So if you're on Instagram, I have a little highlight reel that talks about daily sales. And I actually have a course that teaches you how to do that for yourself. So that way, it's not your business, your sales isn't limited to when you are available. That was very intentional. That is one of the things, right? There's certain things that we do to expand our emotional capacity for more. And within our business, we take a look at the tangible things that then allows us to expand our capacity for more, to sustain, to hold. And so within your business, it's like, do I have offers that then allows me to remove myself from the business? Yes, there are certain things that's going to have to be done, especially if you don't have like a system yet, where you have to make sure people have access to their courses, that they're still getting, emails, so that way they can access the programs they purchase. So you need to make sure those things are dialed and those things are in place, right? There's the tangible things you do. And then you also think about your support. What are the things that you can bring in to really support you? I give very clear examples of what I do. So if something dire really happened, my members are taken care of because I can tune in, I can tap into some of my biz besties and say, "Hey, can you lead these sales calls? Hey, can you do this? Can you lead this EFT tapping session? Can you do this?" Right? Because I have that network. If you don't have that yet, highly encourage you to make sure you support yourself around that network. If you're in a place in your business where you can scale, as some of you know, I'm a co-coach for other programs. I would love to be a co-coach in your program, depending on, if that is a match. But you want to have others around you because life happens. Okay. You want to have someone either on retainer, or you want to make sure that you have those connections in place where it's like, if this happens, can you come in and support my members? Okay. And your one-on-ones, my encouragement to you is something dire does happen, just extend a contract. They'll understand. And if they don't, then they're probably not the ideal client for you. Now I'm going to move in to how I did, when I say that I don't ignore my emotions, how do we then process our emotions? So one of the things that I do share often is the book, The Body Keeps the Score. Our body is what we want to process. So when I say process the emotions, you're not processing the thoughts necessarily that are happening. You're processing the sensations, because you're going to remove the stories out of it. You're going to remove the future casting, and you're going to allow yourself to just feel into the emotions. So one of the practices that I really love inviting you into is emotional freedom technique. I do it differently because it's very body-based. It includes somatic movement. It includes more of the mindfulness practices. So it's all like in one, helping you to process something that you're going through. Okay. Something you can also, that's one practice I really would invite you into. I do have some videos on here. I also do have a program that then allows you to go through some more of like the in-depth, different ways that you can really help process your emotion. It's all really body-based, helping you to return back into your body so you can release the emotions. So that way it moves through you. Because when we think about energy, it doesn't leave us. Instead, it transmutes. It moves. And that's what we're trying to move. We're trying to move the emotion. So you want to feel what that emotion resides in you. And that is what you're moving. You're not going into the stories. You're not going into future casting. You're going to move your body. You're going to move the emotions. And so that's one of the things that I really invite you into, is that when you're processing your emotions, you're using body-based techniques like emotional freedom technique, somatic movement, to then allow you to actually enter into the emotions. So that way it can be processed. Okay. We're not going into the stories. We're not going into the future casting, because rarely do I ever hear a future casting and it's something positive. It's usually we go into, oh, this thing's going to happen, and, all these things. And I know, because I've been there. I think about that. I would go into that, especially with our son, all the time. So, and I have to remind myself, it's like, no, we're going to go back into the body. We're going to drop. We're going to process this emotion. What's the emotion I'm feeling right now? I'm feeling overwhelmed. Even though I'm feeling really overwhelmed right now, I love and accept myself exactly as I am. Deep breath in, release, let go. Tapping between the brows is completely understandable. I'm feeling really, really overwhelmed right now. Tapping on the side of the eyes. So I go in through the entire tapping sequence. I allow myself to move my body. Completely understandable. I'm feeling overwhelmed. Where can I really feel the overwhelm right now? Deep breath in, release, let go. Sometimes I shake. Sometimes I'm like grounding, returning that energy, releasing it, visualizing it, going into the earth, doing a prayer, lifting it up to Jesus. I have like an entire visualization, entire process that I work through to release the emotion. That's what I invite you into. I don't want you to go into future casting. I don't want you to analyze every thought. Okay. Because oftentimes our thoughts are not true. We have like over 60,000 thoughts a day. And most of them, if we're not careful, we want to guard our thoughts, we want to guard our hearts, guard our mind, because oftentimes there's just things that we just keep thinking that most of the time they aren't even true. And oftentimes they're just future casting of scenarios that hasn't happened yet. And so I hope this was helpful for you. I hope that it gave you tangible ways for you to expand your emotional capacity for more, to it within your business, expand your emotional capacity for more within your body, because you have to process those emotions. And as always, I would love to invite you inside of the Attract Abundance Academy, where we get to do this work together. And I'm going to drop that for you down below this video, so you'll see it in the description box. And if you have any questions whatsoever, love to connect with you on Instagram. That is where I am most active when it comes to social media. I hope this was helpful for you, friends. And I really do hope to see you inside Attract Abundance Academy. If not, I will catch you in the next video. Sending you lots of love.